surprise. You have opened my eyes. I see love, powers in you. Such a beautiful view of the world. Healing is real. You recreate what you feel through your words. No hiding away. You mean what you say. Your strong brute force put me right back on course. Not hard to see. This is healthy for me to face the fears that I've had all these years. Just do one thing, one thing. You need to bear it all, bear it all, bear it all. You need to bear it all, bear it all, bear it all.
Hello guys, it's Darrell,
And I'm Jen.
and this is A Look for the World. Hey Jen, thank you for coming on before we get started. How's your week been so far?
My week has been very well. I've been reading a lot of the new books that I've ordered. And I've been self-reflecting a lot while reading them because they're not self-help books, but they are like realistic fiction. And I like to make connections with the books that I read on a personal basis. So I've been turning inward a lot lately, and just learning from the books that I've been reading and spending a lot of time outside. Now that we're like no longer fully quarantined anymore, I enjoy it a lot. So how my week has been going.
I love that. I love that. I've been doing a lot of reading as well, and a lot of writing as usual. So there's a lot of things that I want to talk to you about, and I'm
Oh my
excited.
gosh.
I'm excited because both of us are writers, and
Mhm.
this connection there as artists, but now there's also like that connection as writers, and we're gonna be
Mhm.
really just share that exchange with everybody. Writing is pretty much like your documented growth. And as you
Yeah.
like, wow, you things make more sense. And sometimes when you write things, you're more so living in that space or that like moment. And then when you look
Yeah.
older, you understand things more. You go back
Mhm.
and you read these things and you're like, okay, so this is what this was. And this is
Mhm.
so much. So how has like your writing helped you pretty much during quarantine?
Well, being quarantined honestly helped me with my writing a whole lot. I feel like before quarantine, I was a full-time student and I was also working. I'm a teacher. So my time was always dedicated to that. And I didn't really have the time to really sit with my thoughts or my emotions. Like I would just push them to the side because I had other things to get done. So now that we were all quarantined, I had no choice but to like sit with my emotions and sit with everything that I've avoided. And my form of release is writing. So that's basically how I got all my thoughts and feelings on paper. And I kind of got myself together in that way. I kind of started to understand myself in a better way because I feel like when you don't sit with yourself or give yourself that time to analyze what's going on within, everything like that's outward does not make sense. Like your life just won't make sense. You're gonna feel very confused, very out of control, and you're not gonna feel grounded at all. So being quarantined definitely helped me recenter myself and really think like, who is Jennifer? What does she want? And I honestly noticed that during the last 3 months, like I've grown so much from when we first started this new year. So I can definitely say that quarantine, as bad as the pandemic has been, but it's been like a blessing in disguise, at least for some of us, and it has been for me most definitely.
Same. I can definitely agree. I'm happy that you use your creative outlet to like, still feel alive. And I can definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Finding positivity in a very negative time. And I think that's what's so beautiful about being an artist, because you can easily find
Yeah.
negative times, or you can easily find moments to create in negative times. And I agree, like, being in quarantine has helped me with my creativity, my writing because it kind of helps me turn inward and get to know myself. And
Mhm.
it also helped that right before I was in a very positive mindset. So even though I was fearful, I was going into it ready, like, okay, so these are the things that I'm going to be doing to feel alive being inside. And
Right.
it's almost like I got very used to being inside and I actually liked it, turning inward and like being isolated, even though I was afraid of it at first because I thought that it would be a down.
Right.
And I'm
Even though I know that turning inward can be very uncomfortable for most people. So like you also have to keep in mind that even though you're turning inward and it feels uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that it's wrong or that you should avoid it. It's something that you should actually face. If you are feeling uncomfortable, that means that there's something there that needs to be addressed.
definitely, exactly. And like being able to do that, like it just made me feel a lot. It helped me with my self-image, being able to
Mhm.
and understand myself and also pinpoint things. So, you and we also been talking a lot about like family trauma and
Mhm.
we both actually been reading this book that I want to like talk about. So you and I have both been reading It Didn't Start With You, which I highly recommend. Highly recommend. Like
Yeah, it's really good.
you said, some things are very uncomfortable to talk about with ourselves.
Hmm.
So necessary, like things that I was asked to write about or about in this book. Like at first, I was very uncomfortable with it, but it just helped
Hmm.
myself and be closer to people in my family who I had like no relationship with, who I still love. Um, and it helped me understand that, not everything is personal. Things really just a lot of and a lot of like things that older people in our family have gone through. It was already a thing before we were here. So nothing
Right.
about us, to be honest, and it helped me. Um, so yes, I know you didn't finish yet, but I do want to ask you, like, what's your, I guess, like top takeaway from the book so far?
So, honestly, like it's a really great book and I loved it. It's funny because I first saw the book last year. And it was just like an as an ad like on Instagram. And my best friend had sent it to me and she told me like, "Oh Jen, like you should definitely buy this book. Like I feel like it ties into everything that you write about." And I'm like, I don't know, I don't know. And then Darrell like reintroduced me to the book and he was like, "No, Jen, like you need to buy this book." And so I'm like, damn, like, all right, I'm gonna consider it. So I bought it and I automatically started reading. I fell in love with it, but I honestly stopped. And I don't know if you want to turn to that page, but I stopped at chapter 4 on like page 62. So shook, and I was just like, oh my god, like here comes like the real questions. And I did. I'm not gonna lie, like I did feel triggered with some of the questions because I like this book isn't something that you rush through. I feel like it's something that you really should take the time with and sit and like answer all the questions in detail so that you can understand like your place like with your family and also have a better understanding of yourself and why you have these bad habits or why you react the way that you do. So it honestly did get just from reading to like page 62, like it has given me a better insight on like my family dynamics and like where I get certain like habits and reactions from. Like I know, for example, like I didn't know that anxiety can be like passed down until I read the book. And I was like, whoa. And then that's when I started to ask my mom questions. Like at least, I feel like I'm blessed enough to still be able to have my mom here to ask these kind of questions. And so I asked her and she was like, yeah, like I used to have anxiety too, like when I was like in my teens and in my 20s because I had kids at like your age, and I'm just like, oh, like it makes sense. So like this book really has opened me up to like a different side of myself and my family. So I'm honestly looking forward to finishing the book, but I don't think it's gonna be anytime soon, only because I'm taking like my sweet time with it.
Yeah, definitely take your time. I took my time,
Yeah.
like a little every day, or at least like a few days in the week, and still read
Mhm.
on the side to like kind of balance that. I found this book from an ad off of Instagram as well. That's crazy. Um, but yeah, so 60 pages to Sensing the Flow. Yeah, this is the first thing that I saw where I was like, okay. So this is where we start. It helped me a lot and helped us a lot. But
Yeah.
it's very triggering, but it's also good to take time with it, but also push through because it's worth it.
Hmm. And even though it is triggering, like, I feel like you have to kind of like face them. Like, you're gonna eventually have to face them, especially if you hope to be a parent in the future. Like, again, like, these are like generational trauma. Like, if you don't if you don't tackle these issues now, like, you're gonna pass them down to your children, and you're gonna see a lot of the same problems that you had growing up rising when you're raising your children. So I feel like it's very important to, tackle these issues now so that you can unlearn what you learned and relearn healthier ways to approach a situation, and then you can always pass that healthier version down to your children.
Exactly. I'm trying to find this quote that basically ties into what you just said. And when I
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow, that's so true. Because to be very honest, like just looking at the patterns in my family and with, just acknowledging everyone else's actions and stuff, actions speak a lot about what's going on inside of a person. So it helped me realize
Yeah.
a lot of patterns and stuff within my family. And I was like, the reason why a lot of this stuff continues is because no one's talking about it.
Yes, and it's like, and I feel like, just because you don't talk about it doesn't mean there isn't a problem. And I also feel like, just because no one's talking about it, it doesn't make it okay. Like, it still doesn't make it okay. And that's why I feel like, I strongly feel like, even if you're the only one speaking about something, or removing yourself from, like like from the family, because they are just too ignorant to even fix their ways, and like, I feel like it's okay. Like, you're gonna people, or rather your family's gonna make you feel guilty. They're gonna, like, probably down talk you, or say things like, oh, you're moving funny, or like, why are you being like that? Like, we're family, family over everything. And it's just like, no, like, if you're not playing the role the right way, then you are not welcomed into my space, and that is okay. Like, that's where you have to build your boundaries, because if not, like, you're gonna continue to um you're basically like being a people pleaser by allowing yourself to be in a space where you're not being welcome.
And disrespecting yourself at the same time.
Yes.
You're grateful that your mother is here to answer certain questions. Like for me, I kind of get my answers from both my mother and my grandmother, but I find myself asking my
Right.
questions simply because like she was here longer than my mom, so like she can tell me more. And like
Right.
it's so weird because me and my grandmother are so much alike to the point where it's like scary. And I forgot how much we're like. But now that we've been getting close again, um, I've been able to ask her certain things, and I was looking at pictures of like my family and stuff like that, and just keeping in mind
Yeah.
that I've heard and what's been told to me and what's been said. But yeah, there's a part of this book. I don't know if I should tell you like what it gets into. Is it okay?
Yeah, I don't mind.
There's a part of the book where like it talks about things that I'm gonna read this quote first. It's on chapter 6. The quote says, "When an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate." So, like you were saying, like when you don't talk about things, it like the cycle will continue. So basically, it was asking like things that you feel and stuff like that, but you feel like you felt it your entire life. And it's like obviously this comes from something or someone, like this didn't just, like it's like how did I feel this way ever since I could remember? And like it kind of asks you to pay attention to like things that happen to other people in their family and stuff like that. And my thing was me being so afraid to like speak out or being quiet. Sorry, my cat is trying to come in. Yes, he scratches at the door when he wants to come in. But
Uh,
so it was like asking, basically my issue, the thing that I chose, my core sentence, which is like something that I feel or I felt for so long but never said or like dug deep. So basically it was I'm afraid that I will remain trapped. And like I got it from so many situations where I've been afraid to speak up they basically asked me to think of like other situations in my family, even things that happened before I was born. And, you know, like basically like who in your family passed away feeling trapped and stuff like that.
Right. Oh, yeah. I wanted to actually touch base on something that we said, and I kind of want to introduce another book that I had just finished reading. It's called Untamed. Here it goes right here. And I wanted to use a quote because you were saying how like we normally feel something, but we don't understand where it's coming from. And but like it's there, like we feel it, and obviously like it's for a reason, and we just ignore it because other people say that it's not real, or like people like say like you're crazy or you're like bugging out. So I really wanted to read this part of the book. And then it says, then I built a life of my own. I did it by reconstructing the very parts of myself I was trained to mistrust, hide, and abandon in order to keep others comfortable. My emotions, my intuition, my imagination, my courage. Those are the keys to freedom. Those are who we are. Will we be brave enough to unlock ourselves? Will we be brave enough to set ourselves free? Will we finally step out of our cages and say to ourselves and to the people and the world, here I am?
Wow.
And I feel like that really like ties into like what we were saying. And I feel like when I read it, like I obviously highlighted it because it was like so good, but it made me think like there's so many times where like I went against my intuition, and every time that I went against it, I always felt like regret because I did it. And I realized that it was because, or I never felt like proud of the decisions that I made when I went against my intuition. Like they would feel right, like for like the temporary, sorry, for like a temporary point of time, but then like when I look back to it, it's just like that didn't even make you like a better person. That's not even what you wanted. That's not even like what you would have done like if you were able to like speak for yourself. And I feel like a lot of us do that, especially now, like with social media and wanting to like be somebody that we're not because we think that's the only way to get to like the top or to get to where we want to be. And I feel like, yeah, like, you know, maybe you will get to that point of your life by pretending to be someone, but are you happy? Are you actually doing this because this is what you want to do with yourself? Are you doing this to please other people or to seek that validation from strangers, you know? So those are the things that I feel like are easy. Those are the ways that like we can easily trap ourselves into a cage because we're not listening to ourselves, because we're so afraid of like doing what other people are afraid to do. And I feel like that's what makes you you. And then I feel like, you know, the more you trust yourself, the more you're going to trust the decisions that you're going to make, the more you're going to trust um the decisions that arise when you're, you know, when you don't know what to do, but like you kind of sit with yourself and you're like, okay, what feels right? What feels warm? What doesn't feel warm? Like what feels cold? And so you go with what feels warm and you do it unapologetically because you trust yourself and you know that you have the best interest at heart. So yeah, that was my little.
Because we never really know what to do. Like we never know. And
We never know.
like one thing that I learned, there's this other book that I read. It's called, well, I'm reading. It's called This Moment Is Your Miracle. One thing that the book mentioned was that we never know, as people, we never know what experience will bring us good. And then
Mm-hmm.
it said the reason why we don't know is because every situation and every experience brings us good. So that's why we have to learn to trust ourselves to, you know that no matter what like journey we take ourselves on, we know that we did it for our
Mm-hmm.
to be our greater good. And if we search for that greater good, we'll find it no matter what. Like
I
even
agree.
in a very negative situation. What are some of the positive ways family trauma, like or childhood trauma, has um, shaped who you are today?
It definitely taught me to trust myself, like for sure. And I know that we just finished talking about that, but I feel like that's something that it really taught me. It really taught me to that just because, you know, to like my mom or to my dad or to my sister something is okay, it doesn't make it okay for me, and that is fine and that is acceptable, you know. If you feel like, you know, certain people you shouldn't, you know, surround yourself around certain family members because they make you feel uncomfortable, but it may not seem and it may not look the same for somebody else in your family, that is also okay. You have to trust yourself enough to remove yourself and not listen to like other people's opinions, like, oh, but come on, like that's your cousin or like that's your uncle. If they make you feel uncomfortable, just remove yourself, and then you need to trust that what you're doing is right. So that's one thing. Another thing, I feel like it kind of made me reconnect with my mom in a way, because I feel like we all go through a phase where like we kind of feel too grown to like be with like our parents. But like even but then I felt like, I know that it was like in high school I started to feel this way. I started to feel like this, like all of a sudden, like grudge against my mom, and I never understood why. And I couldn't shake the feeling off, and it ended up like leading towards like me not even like wanting to talk to her, me not even wanting to be in the same room as her. And there was clearly a deeper like reason for that, and I ended up learning more about it as I decided to like turn inward and really analyze like my childhood, and see why that was so. And once I figured it out, I was like, okay, well, the next step is for me to confront her about it and to actually sit with her about it. And for someone like my mom, she doesn't like confrontation at all, but I still did it. Even with like fear, like in my voice and my voice being cracked, like I still did it. But there was actually like a beautiful turnaround. Like she actually like came down to my level and she reasoned with me, and she, it turned into her even apologizing for the things that she did put me through growing up. And and with that, like that was the moment where I decided to forgive my mom. And I want to make clear that like forgiveness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. And when you decide to forgive someone, you can't like just unforgive them because like it doesn't feel like right tomorrow. Like it doesn't work like that. You kind of have to like stand your ground when it comes to it. But I decided to forgive my mom in that moment, and I decided that in that moment, like I'm gonna, like the next days, like I'm gonna continue to rebuild like our foundation. And I did talk to her about it as well, and we ended up doing that. And that was like, I would say that actually happens in 2019, believe it or not. And even then, like I still find myself like holding that, or like battling that grudge like from within, like, oh, but she did this when you were younger. And I have to tell myself like, no, like she, like I've grown, and so has she. And we all make mistakes, we're not perfect, we weren't meant to be perfect. And she's doing the best that she can with what she knows and what she has. And that's something that I had to like reason with myself, because we think that like our parents like have to be these perfect humans, but in reality, like they have a past too, they have flaws, they have things that they're not proud of either. And that's what makes them human, and that's what makes them so amazing. That they can even pass down like their experiences to us, so that we can like um not always avoid like what's wrong, but we just have like a better head on our shoulders. So those are like the two main things that I feel like were the positive things out of like my childhood trauma.
That's beautiful. And I can definitely agree with like holding this grudge toward her mom, and like it turned into like this very bad anger. And like even when she would like come near,
Mm-hmm.
very like tight on the inside and like just like closed in, and just like, why is she near, and it's,
Yeah.
I had to ask myself like, when did this start? Why? Because you were never like that, as a kid growing up with a single mother. I was like always wanting to be around my mother, and
Yeah.
I would literally lose it whenever my mom would like go out or something and like leave me with my grandmother or something. But
Mm-hmm.
I ask myself, like, why did I ask myself, and when? Um, but yeah, like I had to work on forgiving my mother. Um, she's a wonderful mom, and she's very emotionally supportive to me, and like supportive, like I can go to my mother if I need to. But there was one thing that bothered me for a long time, like specifically in terms of like her allowing someone into our family who I didn't feel like I got the proper say in whether they should be a part of our family or not with us.
Mm-hmm.
But this is my home. This is her and I's home. And her and I have been a family for so long. And I felt like I didn't get the proper, like I wasn't asked if I felt comfortable with the person she's with moving in with us and stuff like that. And I feel like it's necessary. It's definitely necessary. Um, Growing up, I wouldn't think that because I thought it was normal for kids not to have a say because they don't pay bills. But that's just not right. But I know that her heart is always in the right place, and I know that she's doing the best with what she knows.
And that can be actually a really big problem with houses where like or broken homes when like your mom or dad decides to like move on from your biological parent, and you feel so uncomfortable with them. You feel like, oh, like I actually got thrown the question, the statement, you are not um she basically told me, you cannot tell me who I can and can't date. And I kind of felt so like whoa, like I was triggered. And I felt like, well, I do if you're bringing them like here. And I've always been very assertive, like growing up, like I was very bold, very assertive. I always spoke my mind, obviously not in like a disrespectful way, but because I was so assertive, and it would kind of like trigger like adults. They saw it as me being disrespectful, but it wasn't. It was just me stating like my opinion and like stating like how I, well, not my opinion, but like my feelings. And your feelings are indeed, they're facts. They're definitely facts. So I was just stating how I was feeling, and to her it seemed like I was like holding a freaking gun at her head. But in reality, it was just like I personally wasn't comfortable with that. And even then, like even though this person didn't end up moving into my house, but just having him around, it was just so wrong. And knowing like, that the relationship wasn't all that healthy, I definitely, no one wants to see their parent in like an unhealthy relationship. So even then, like when you try to like state, like, hey mom, like I don't think this is what's best for you, you kind of get thrown like with the, you don't know what's best for me, like only I do. So it's just like, okay, like, so it kind of sucks. So I definitely know like what you mean.
It's hard to. I also had to learn that I have to let the people that I love make their own decisions, whether I agree with it or not. But it's just a lot
Yes.
when their decision is something that I have to deal with and live with as well. Being that when someone is brought into our home, now this is my relationship too, kind of. This is my problem too.
Yes.
So, like, just hearing everything go through and trying to be positive, it conflicts. And then
Mm-hmm.
be like, maybe if you would have never, this wouldn't be the case. But
Right.
it is the case, and the only way to move forward or be happy about it is to really just see things in a better light. Sometimes that's really all we can do. And just knowing certain patterns, I know that physically is not going to change. So I have to change
Right.
to be able to even live through it and be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's tricky.
Heavy on the whole, like we don't control anyone because we don't own anybody. But when it does interfere with our space, yeah, you definitely have a say in that.
Yeah, definitely. It's tricky. It's like, damn, why do we as young people have to be the ones to carry, but
The
and
weight. Mm-hmm.
it's just like they did as well. They just didn't know how to deal with
I'm
it.
sure they did. Yeah.
And I think we're dealing with things beautifully. Positive ways that my family and childhood trauma have stemmed to who I am today or shaped who I am today. I would say that because of them, I appreciate paying attention more and like paying attention to actions and seeing how it's for people and seeing how my actions speak for me. Also, like clinging to my creativity and knowing that that's the only thing that can keep me in a positive state and like seeing things with an eye of an artist. Because I remember when I was a child, like no matter what situation or what was going on, what adults were fighting or arguing, I was sitting down reading or writing or just doing something that I love to do as a kid. And it doesn't that like I think growing up we think that changes, but it doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right.
I think that a lot of people in my family let go of themselves, try to let go of themselves as children. But what happens is when you do that, you're literally yourself as a child, no matter what. So whatever you feel about your child that you're holding on to, it shows. So if you're angry about it, it shows, like in the things,
Right.
actions. Um, but yeah, for the most part, also like helped me know the importance of turning inward and making sure I pay attention to the people that I keep around me. But yeah, that's that.
And that's good. Like, it really made you to become more of an observant person. And I feel like that's amazing because a lot of people, we tend, or most of us tend to just listen, or like, we listen to respond rather than to like hear what's, or to rather than to understand what's going on. And that's what also like kind of like blocks our, or rather gives us like a lack of communication, because of the fact that we're not willing to understand like where someone else is coming from, and like their emotions and their point of view. So that's an amazing outcome.
Yeah, it's beautiful because the truth is it's always something that causes us to have good qualities, or like things that,
Yeah.
because we have to know like what we need, and we learn that from moments of not having anything to help us.
Right.
Imagining yourself as a kid, as a little girl,
Okay.
like just imagining you sitting like a few feet away, and you just see this little girl, like you see yourself like just running around or whatever. Like, what do you think of her?
Okay.
What do you think of her?
um I see myself being extremely carefree. Always like, I'm one who like literally was the one that would stop and smell the roses. Like, that was always me as a child. Like, I was always like, oh, I want to touch this. Or like, oh, I want to like see what's over there. Like, I was very like observant. Like, I was one of those students that like literally lingers off, because like I would, not that I would get bored so easily, but I was so curious. I was so curious about the world around me. And I was just like so in the moment all the time. Like, I did not care about yesterday. I did not care about tomorrow. Like, I was just so like, I need, like, if I was put in an environment, like, my job for me felt like I needed to like see everything that was placed in front of me. So I would definitely see myself like trying to be friends with everyone at the park, or like me touching like the grass, or like finding like bugs, or like, like playing with like anything, like literally anything. Like, if I could even have like a stick and I'll draw on the dirt or something. Definitely being carefree, and very resilient. And I feel like I still have that quality till this day. But it's just harder to see because we deal with like real life problems now rather than when we were younger. But I definitely was one who was very resilient. Like, if I got scraped like on my knee, I was like, for five, like after 5 minutes I would be quick to just like, all right, whatever, like I'm back to playing and running around again. I was never one to like care much about what other people like said. um at first I would be very shy, but I would still like kind of like see like, oh, like, is she just as playful, is he just as playful, and then like I'll just like join in and like start a whole conversation, like, oh, what's your favorite color, like oh, what's your favorite cartoon. And like I was very quick and very social to like speak to other children. I and I still am like that now. I'm still a social butterfly.
I was always very shy, but I was also very carefree. Things that I worry about now, I wasn't worried about back then. And
Right.
see myself, I could just see myself, like you said, being carefree and making up stories, making up my own kids. I would always find a friend, and I would always like try to find something for us to do that's
Yeah.
something that's not already a thing around us. I'll think about it. That's kind of crazy when I say that. Because, like, literally, if you think about it, I still do that in a way. Like, for example,
Yeah, so if all your creative projects, like that's literally what you do.
you and I, we met, we became friends, and I created something for us to do.
Literally.
Crazy link. It's a wild link. Um, I'm trying to get crazy out of my vocabulary,
Don't worry about it.
but yeah. So that's me. I could also see myself being very creative. If I saw myself as a child now, I would be like, wow, he's so different than his surroundings.
Yeah.
Very much so.
I was also very artistic when I was younger. Like, I loved arts and crafts. Like, that was my thing. I loved to draw and like just make things out of paper and whatever. And I still am like that. Like, obviously, like I'm a whole writer, so it's like I still like am in touch with that part of me. But I did lose that part of me for a great period, only because of like other people's opinions. But then like once you reconnect with your inner child, you start to like remember who you were when you were younger, and it's like everything starts to make sense again.
Yes, and like you start to do things you used to love to do, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a good feeling, like knowing that you like it's like you tried to get away from that person for so long, and then eventually you're like, wait, I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to be more like him or more like her because that's how I most.
Yeah.
It's important to be yourself as a kid because that's just who you are. Period.
Right.
That's who you are before you're
Mm-hmm.
anything, and that's just who you are before being shaped and shifted into being other things. Well, you're also a teacher, and
Yeah.
I think that's awesome because you're very self-aware and you
Mm-hmm.
encourage children to be self-aware and to know that they matter. Can you share the quote that you pretty much like created to say to the children every day?
Oh yeah. So I basically, well, it wasn't. I kind of like reworded it, but I basically got it from the movie The Hate You Give. I basically tell my students to never let anyone make them be quiet. And the reason why I say that is because I personally, like, I teach in a school, an inner city school filled with Black and Hispanic students, and I feel like we, including like myself as a person of color, we were brought up to never speak our mind, to never, say what we feel, say what we truly feel, say, stand up for ourselves. Every time we want to be assertive, we are seen as aggressive, we are seen as disrespectful, and that is in no way, shape, or form true. Especially when it comes to a child and an adult. I feel like adults see when kids stand up for themselves as something disrespectful, but they forget that children are human too, and they are entitled to their emotions. So especially now, since with all of the movement becoming even greater, which is amazing. I've enforced it even more, even though I've been saying it since September. But I would relate it back to like something that they would understand. So I would say like, never let anyone make you be quiet. So whether that's the teacher trying to like, try to change your opinion on something, or it's your friend like belittling you, or something that's going on at home, like never let anyone make you be quiet. And so now, before we got into quarantine, we did a project on police brutality that they actually chose to do. And I decided to showcase The Hate You Give as an example to what police brutality looks like. And they loved it a lot. It was amazing, even though it was like pretty explicit, but it was an amazing movie to show for kids in that age range, which was middle school. And they were filled with so many questions, and they finally saw like why I use the quote that I do with them. And even more so now when we transitioned into remote learning, and that's when all the protesters started to like go off even more. They started telling me like, oh, Miss A, like I now see why you tell us like never let anyone make us be quiet. And like they feel extremely empowered with that quote. And that's something that makes me so happy because they're in middle school, and I feel like middle school is the most important age range where they need a guidance, because that's they're beginning to mold their minds and mold who they are. And it's very essential for them to have a positive mentor or a positive like influence in their lives, who's gonna like tell them like, no, like be who you want to be, and be unapologetically you. Like do not let the world make you trapped in a cage. Do not let your parents make you become trapped in a cage. Like be who you want to be, even if it means going against what someone thought they would, going against something that people thought you were. Because then again, like you're not obligated to maintain an image for people who made up this image of who you are when in reality that's not who you are. I don't know if that made sense, but I hope it did. Um, but yeah, and so like they really felt empowered with that, and I'm honestly glad that I was able to introduce that quote to them, because now it's like it's something that they really go off with.
Also, like, thank you for doing that because I know that as a kid, I would have loved to be in your class. Like, I just know that for sure. 'Cause if you're not teaching anybody,
Yes.
what's the point of learning it yourself?
Right. And education is really the seed to this, not only the seed, the water and sun to children's like growth, and to who they end up becoming. Because if they don't have the right resources, if they don't have the right people in their corner, they're not going to grow or blossom in ways that, or in ways that they could have. And I feel like each and every one of us have has like plays an essential role in this world and in the world of like reformation. And to hinder a child's growth is pretty sad. And I feel like the public school system does exactly that. They like to hinder a lot of like the children's growth. And we're all meant to do different things. Not everyone is meant to be in STEM. Like, we also have creative like ways to make a difference in this world as well.
Right. And like, also, I just like a lot of people and like a lot of college students who have been like who've gone viral for saying the N word, like a lot of white college students, and being
Hmm.
respectful and like putting their knees on other people's necks as a joke about George Floyd and stuff like that. Have they been taught character rather than all this shit to like memorize to get into college? I think that they would be better people.
Right. Because then again, racism is taught, is not something you're born with. Like, you are taught that. And I feel like, even if they're not learning that, even if they were taught to be racist as at home, I would hope that at least in the second place that they spend the majority of their time in, they're being taught to not be racist. And that's something that we honestly don't learn about in school. So, and I feel like, I can't really speak for private schools, but I know that even like public schools in like wealthier neighborhoods, they still get the same curriculum as us, like in inner cities. They just have like better resources. But a lot of the teachers are obviously predominantly white. So I do question, like, how do they go about these lessons? I know that there's a book that says the N word, and a lot of teachers use that book just to find a reason to say the N word, and it kind of makes me uncomfortable that they do that. Well, not kind of. It makes me very uncomfortable that they do that. And that we actually had in our high school, we had a teacher that did that, and that was pointed out to him. I remember in the middle of the class, and they were like, "We don't feel comfortable with you saying that. Can you censor yourself?" And it's okay. And he actually did. Like, he actually took our emotions into consideration. But when you have, a white teacher doing that to white students, they're not going to feel offended because they're not people of color. And I'm not saying that you have to be a person of color to feel offended towards the N word. Absolutely not. But I feel as though like they wouldn't feel as like, wait, that's not right. Like, they wouldn't be quick to say that. Like, they'll just like go with it because it's a part of the book. It's a part of the story.
You're literally an advocate, like for children believing in themselves, people of color, Black Lives Matter, the LGBT. Like, you literally support everything that's important to support.
So,
And I just want to thank you for that because I actually fall in all of those categories. So just it's a very great feeling to connect with someone as an artist and then as like as people and be friends with them and know
mhm,
actually like stand for what I stand for. Being that you do turn inward a lot, like I want you to share
mhm.
with everybody how you like some of the steps that you take that you know are necessary because a lot of people do struggle with turning inward. Um, like I don't think you guys understand. Like Jennifer takes it so serious, as do I. So like I'm just grateful to know someone who is that way because I know that when I need time and I'm alone and I'm taking my time, she'll understand. And
Yeah.
very important quality to have because when you're somebody who turns inward a lot and you take your time with yourself, you can respect other people doing that. If you don't do it, you don't know what it's like, so you will easily take personal other people not being around you for a while or not talking to you
Right.
or victimizing yourself when all they're trying to do is grow. So what are
Mhm.
some things that you do to encourage yourself to turn inward and be there for yourself and be like and strengthen that relationship with yourself?
So I don't have any steps to take. I swear I don't have any steps. What I do is that once I feel myself like being triggered for any little thing, every time I feel myself being triggered for like any little thing, or like I feel like my anxiety, like I feel like people who have anxiety, they can sense when it's like rising. So once I start feeling that, I'm like, okay, like I need to take some time for myself. There's something that's bothering me that I'm not addressing. And so for me, I don't know if this has to do with me being an earth sign, Taurus king. I feel like I'm very one with earth. Like I'm very like, the way I connect with myself is by connecting with nature. And so what I do is, especially in the summertime, you'll always find me at the park. You'll always find me like having a picnic by myself. Like I love being by myself. Um, but you'll definitely find me like by myself at the park, enjoying the sun. Like the sun is something that I love. If I'm in front of the sun, that's my form of meditation. So definitely like meditating looks different for everybody, and that's something that I do. Meditating looks different for everyone. You can grab a yoga mat and just sit in silence, and that can be like your meditation. But for me, like I find that doesn't help for me at all. I do sit in stillness, but I have to do it outside of my home. And that is like my own like personal reasoning, and it's only because like my home isn't my sanctuary, whereas like being in front of the sun and like being like in nature, like that is my sanctuary. So I feel most safe when I'm outside and I can like breathe fresh air and like have the sun on me. That allows me to think better, to really like um feel my emotions flow and like understand myself and what I'm like feeling. I also love to write. Obviously, I'm a writer, so I love to write. I always have my journal with me. Um, and in those moments where I do take myself on those little dates to the park, wow, sorry, my AirPod fell out. When I do take myself on like these little dates to the park and have my picnics, I always have my journal with me. So I do write the things that I feel or have been feeling for the past week. And I just let myself write. I don't stop. Like I don't like if I feel myself wanting to take a break, I'm like, no, like 5 more minutes. Like I just keep writing and writing and writing and writing until I'm like, okay, I feel released now. And so I'll read what I wrote, and I'm like, oh, okay, like I'll start, everything starts to like make sense, everything starts to like point back to like why and like where, like the root of it all. And I feel like that's really important because I know for me growing up, I would always react impulsively, and honestly that gets you nowhere. Like that honestly can destroy your relationships with people. And that's not an excuse to how can I say, it's not like being impulsive is not an excuse at all. Like it's like when someone's angry and they start saying like mean things. That's not an excuse for you. Just because you're angry is an excuse for you to say mean things. So I feel like it was my job to really sit with my emotions before I go ahead and like spaz on people. So the two ways that I do turn inward is definitely spending time with nature and writing. And I would definitely say just spending time a lot of time by myself, sorry. Because I feel like the only way you can turn inward is if you're by yourself. I don't think that that's anyone else's work to do but your own. And you can self-reflect like with a friend, but it's not the same when you're doing it on your own, because like when you're by yourself, there's just something so much more greater than like having someone in your presence. Like it's literally just you. And like if you believe in like a greater power, like it's just you and that greater um source. And you just understand yourself a little bit more better. You hear things more clearly. No one is interrupting that flow. And you're moving at your own pace, and I feel like that is so important when it comes to turning inward, is moving at your own pace. It doesn't matter like if your friends say like, oh, you've been like sad, or like you've been like in your bag for like a week now. You can simply say like, okay, like I'm working with what I can, and I'm just trying to understand myself a little bit better, because at the end of the day, if you don't understand yourself, I feel like no one else is going to understand you. And at the end of the day, is you know yourself better than anyone will ever know you. The answers all rely within yourself. You just have to like lower the noise and turn up like what your feelings and your intuition is trying to like tell you.
Yes.
That was long. I said a lot.
It's all the truth. Like I can agree with everything you said. I do an artist date every week. So at least once a week I take myself on an artist date, and
I love that.
like I have to do it. I can't talk on the phone. I can't, it has to be just me. So like
Right.
I'll go to the beach and like put out my blanket, bring my paint, my canvas, or just read or just write, or put out my hammock in like Astoria Park, or even just do it at home sometimes. Like sometimes I'll have a movie night, or like but for the most part it usually consists like me creating or reading. But sometimes I'll
Hmm.
like watch a movie or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I don't really watch TV. I don't even have a TV in my room. So like whenever I'm watching like Netflix or something, it's like me like sitting myself down, like, okay, I'm gonna watch a movie. Why not? But I usually don't do that a lot. But I love movies, especially like horror movies. That's like my writing for sure for me, yes. And allowing myself to speak my feelings. Some feelings we may feel ashamed about, like
Mhm.
envy or like being hurt by something. And it's just that you're not used to talking about those things. So it makes you feel ashamed. Like being that you hold things back, it's like you feel like it's this big secret that you can't let out, but it's just you never try letting it out. So I do try to write as much as I can, like you said, and keep going. Don't stop. If I get frustrated, I'll just keep on going. And I had to allow myself also to like write black and white, like with black and white thinking sometimes. And I noticed that I would fear, like if there's something that I don't really want to say about someone that I love, but I feel it, I wouldn't write it down, or I would try to bury it. Because I would say, it's not gonna matter later. Like I love this person, it's okay. But it's still important to write it, and I had to allow myself to do that. And once I wrote it, like as days went by, I kind of forgot about it. And like basically what I'm trying to say is it didn't take away from the love that I had from that person. Um, Learning that what you feel in a moment is okay to write. It's what you felt in the moment, not necessarily how you really feel about something as a whole. Or it could be, but I always fear letting myself say what's on my mind. And my writing has helped me do that. Also, candle lighting. I light a candle every single night. Like, there's not a night that I don't light a candle unless I ran out and I'm waiting for more in the mail. But
Yes, candles and playlists for me. Like I love R&B, so like I have my R&B playlist and like a candle lit, and I'm just like going off. Like, and it's so funny because I was dying to get a karaoke machine for my birthday, and like in moments where like I'm singing my freaking heart out, like I'm like I see why nobody bought me one. Like I can't sing for shit, but you know what? Whatever. Like I don't care.
either, but the thing is, I love to sing. Like, Jen, I would love to do karaoke with you. I never really done it with anyone. Like, I've done it with friends, but
Me neither.
like a very comfortable group. But like, I want to be able to do these things in public or out loud,
Hmm.
Starting is a start, but I sing every day to the point where it's like ridiculous. Like I can only imagine when I live alone, like the way I'm gonna be singing. Like
My neighbor's gonna be sick of me.
I love to sing. I love to, but
And you know what's funny though? I really want to try doing karaoke like at a karaoke bar only because I feel like people feel like or people swear that like, oh, I don't know how to sing, so I shouldn't go. And it's like, no, like you should go.
have fun, literally. And like I would always. The thing is, I love ballads, so when I sing, it's always like something that requires serious vocal, but I don't have it. But I still
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, playlists with candles, perfect. Especially when I do my yoga. My playlist, I have a set playlist and it's titled Me. And it's,
Hmm.
you can put a like image as the thingy. It's like a image of a sunflower. But I have like
Yeah.
Snow Allegra, India Ari, Little Mix, and Lauren Hill. That's that playlist. Okay. But yeah, those are my things. I did mention that I wrote something for you. So I
Oh, yeah. I let me pull mine up.
and you actually wrote something for me as well. So we're gonna exchange.
Hmm.
And I love that. I love it. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because you and I both write, and it's important that we are able to express ourselves to the people close to us or the people that we've like gotten to know and the people we appreciate,
Yeah.
with our creativity, because it's like a great way to impact. Okay, so you can start actually.
All right. So it's like really short, so don't come for me. Okay, so Darrell, he is filled with wildflowers of thoughts within his notebook, an aura that feels like home, and an attitude of save the world.
Oh my god.
Yeah, simple.
Attitude has saved the world. I love that. I love that. I love that. That was beautiful. it's always the shorter things that mean the most anyway. Like personally, like, quotes.
And you know what's funny?
What?
And it's crazy because I am a well, I don't consider myself as a poet, but the poems that I do write, they're extremely short. And I used to feel so intimidated because when I would go to like open mics, people's poems were like 3 pages. And I'm like, mine is like 3 lines. So I would feel so intimidated. And I was like, damn, like I shouldn't share because like it's so short. Like people are probably thinking like she's not even creative. And so like I had a friend who told me he was like, Jen, like your poems are so freaking good, and even though they're short, like it's short, but like it gets to the point and it makes people move, like it moves people. So
Yeah.
like that kind of like encouraged me to be like, all right, maybe I shouldn't like.
One thing I can say about Jennifer is when the sun rises, so does she. She knows that as long as there's a new day, she has a chance to be new as well. Afraid of love, but also in love with it. She knows that the world would be nothing without it. When the banging becomes too loud, she pulls back. Jennifer saves her energy. Jennifer saves her love for the children who were once in her position and for the people she loves and the smaller things in life. Jennifer takes her time. Jennifer takes her time because she knows the only way she can give her love to the world is if she gives it to herself.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Send me this so I can frame it.
Ooh, I want to show you this notebook. I don't know if I showed you, but I got my name on it.
Engraved. That's so cute. I love with the flower, of course.
Always, always. They didn't have butterflies, I don't think. I would have got that, but they didn't have it. Yes, so for this exercise, before we wrap, I want to do something that represents you since you're here.
Okay.
I wanted to give it that Jennifer feel because this is like your episode, your scene.
Ooh.
So there's something that you do on your social media, and it's titled "To Me From Me," and basically,
Yes. All right, so around this time last year, I decided to take greater steps into my process of self love by giving myself the things I wish to receive by others. One of those being flowers. I've always admired watching people walk around with bouquets, assuming they're eagerly rushing home to surprise their loved one. Sometimes I wish I could witness their reaction because I know that it'd be priceless. However, instead of waiting around for it, I started gifting it to myself. That's where to me from me came from. The weeks where the devil seems to be working harder than I am, like finding myself struggling to get out of bed in the morning due to my anxiety or wanting to ditch responsibilities because I just don't feel like it. Yet still putting those feelings aside and getting shit done is when I reward myself with flowers. It's a reminder that even if no one else sees my hard work, I do. Even in the midst of not having it all together, I am still deserving of love and kindness. In the beginning of this idea, it all felt weird. Though looking back, that only reflected the amount of self love that I had for myself. None. Now it's something I always look forward to. And then I put a reminder, you are love and light. You are deserving of all things you wish to receive from others. Start with you.
so for this exercise, I wanted to title this exercise "To Me From Me," and what we're both going to do is we're both going to write something to ourselves, and
Okay.
it's going to go with how we're feeling in this moment and imagining us in the future where we've pushed past certain things that we're going through now and we're writing to ourselves
Okay.
from that time point.
Okay. So basically writing a letter to my to the person that I am right now, but as someone who's like 5 years in advance. Okay.
So I'm going to read this to myself. Dear Darrell, you do not have everything under control. It interferes with your self image, however, you're creating. You are allowing yourself to be beautiful. Thank you. Because you are believing in yourself now, I have been able to achieve a beautiful way of living, a beautiful way of living called love.
Oh, that was so sweet. I love that. I swear, love rules everything. It makes the world go round. It makes the world go round. I love it.
I'm
And it really is you. Like, I feel like who you are now, like in terms of like um the fact that you believe so hard on like love and like just loving everything and everyone, I feel like that's still gonna be you like 5 years from now.
Love is literally the root, and it's the most important thing. Like, wow. Like, when I was younger, or like when I was like a teenager, I would hear people say that, and I was like, that's not true. Like success is more important. Thinking that they're talking about relationships and stuff like that, but love is, like I said, a lifestyle. Literally, like.
Really, I love that. You did a great job.
Thank you so much.
So I'm gonna read mine. You know what's funny? I didn't even say dear Jen. Like I put to Jennifer.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like the wording matters, but I just found that interesting. So okay, so I put to Jennifer, anxiety is not your truth. Neither is the trauma you have endured. You have went under intense healing, and even though it doesn't feel like no one notices, your daughter will be proud of you. She sees you. I see you. You are not hard to love. Can't you see that you are a radiant soul? You are worth more than being on an Instagram woman crush Wednesday.
Oh my God, the daughter part choked me up so tight.
Ah, really?
Yes, I felt it. I really, really felt it. That was so beautiful. That was so beautiful. I love it. I love that you were thinking like far enough to like having a daughter. It's so beautiful because then it's like we like we do think highly of ourselves. You know, we do think we're gonna reach this point. You know, even sometimes where we feel like we don't think that highly of ourselves, we do. We definitely do. We have our moments, but we know who we are and we know who we are gonna be.
Yeah.
Your favorite TV show and you see like a character come so far, but they still doubt themselves, and then in the end they do so good, and you're like, we all knew you were gonna do. You're just playing.
Yeah, like it's like the foreshadow.
Yeah, that's literally us. But this is so beautiful. I think you should keep yours, and I'll keep mine, and maybe in time we can read it.
Okay.
So, Jen, I really want to thank you for coming on. Thank you so much for sharing your voice. Thank you for sharing creativity. Thank you for writing. Thank you for exchanging. I think it's just so beautiful that we were able to do this, and be honest and be ourselves, because that's the most important
Vulnerable.
about existing, exactly, and being vulnerable.
I
So,
want to thank you for letting me be on here. I'm really happy that I was able to have a spot in your project because I love the things that come to your mind actually because you have such a creative soul. So I was really looking forward to joining you on this project.
yes, thank you so much. As we go, I do want to say goodbyes, and I also want to say something to anyone out there who's struggling, or anyone out there who's struggling with growth, or any children who are struggling with growth, or just anyone who deserves to believe in themselves more, because we all do. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
end this with saying, you matter, your voice matters, and you are smarter than anyone telling you that you are not smart enough.
I love that. My ending or my closing quote is gonna be never let anyone make you be quiet. And I already know like you guys I have heard previously as to why I use that quote and why it means so much to me. But I really do hope that that quote resonates with you and that you find a spot with that quote and that you carry it along with you through life.
Again, thank you so much for coming on. I really am grateful for you.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm grateful to know people like you who help me connect a lot more to my inner artist child. It just says a lot about you and your presence. And you have a very significant presence to the world. And just keep on, because you're doing a great thing. You're doing a wonderful thing.
You are lights.
Bear it all for me. Get naked for the world to see. Write a song in